We have an exciting panel that's going to be with us today. Sue Mueller is going to be here. I'm going to be here, and Judy Tallur is going to be here. So it's kind of some people that you already know. We're going to be talking about free stuff. And we're going to start off with Sue, who's going to be sharing with us the Frugal Genealogist and things that you can do that aren't going to cost you a whole speck of money. So Sue, if you want to take over. Sue's from Upper Pennsylvania. She's a specialist in genealogy, and she's kind of our go-to person. So Sue, it's all yours. And don't forget to unmute yourself.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, talk about libraries, what you can find on the internet, the advantages of using your local genealogy and historical societies. And I know some of you don't like social media, but social media can help you be cheap. Library, you want to be in contact with the library in the area you're researching, as well as your own library. Many libraries have a genealogy room, and they may do research and have family files. The resources vary. Some of their online resources are for patrons only, but it may be possible for you to get an outside the area library card. We have something in Pennsylvania called Access Pennsylvania, where you can use other libraries for no charge. So that might be something that your state has too. The library could have a newspaper index. They could have an obituary index. There's a local cemetery library here that has a cemetery index. So their resources vary. Some of them are online and are free, and some of them are in the library itself. So it's just a matter of making a phone call to find out what they have and whether you can take advantage of it from outside the area or whether you have to be in-house to do that. They may have subscriptions to certain services. Most libraries have an Ancestry subscription, and it's on one computer only. So if you don't want to have a subscription yourself, you may use the libraries, and you may have a time limit on that because there may be other people that want to use it. Most libraries have the local newspapers on microfilm, and most of them are connected to a computer so that you can save the document onto a flash drive without having to print it. Some libraries will send you obituaries for free. Some will charge you. That varies. You just have to check. I wanted to tell you a little bit about the difference between a library subscription and your own personal subscription. You can put a family tree on the library subscription on your own account, obviously. You can see hints and links to records. You cannot communicate with other people who have family trees. You can see all of the records. You could save those as pictures and attach them to your own tree and then be able to see them. But when you go home and you don't have a library subscription, anything that you saved from Ancestry that you didn't save as a picture is going to be gone, because what they provide is they want you to have a subscription for that. So with a subscription, then you can have all the DNA connections. You can communicate with other researchers. Those are things that you would not be able to do with just the library subscription. And I'm going to tell you at the end how our computer club saves money with an Ancestry subscription. One nice thing about the library edition is the screen is not so cluttered as it is when you have a subscription, because they're always trying to sell you more stuff. So some people learn on that screen, and then they have a hard time if they decide to get their own subscription, because the screen is more cluttered. Some libraries during COVID, and this continues to this day, although not as many as were in the beginning, have made their Ancestry library subscription available online for patrons. So you could check and see if your library has done that. I do not know a single library that does not subscribe to this service. It's HERITAGEQUEST. And this is an online thing that all you have to have is a library card, and you can access this information. All kinds, they have books, they have access to Census, they have all kinds of things on this. The nice thing about the Census records is that it uses the Ancestry Index. And why is the Ancestry Index better than some of the others? Because it allows patrons to make corrections. If they see something that's been indexed incorrectly, they can suggest a correction. And then Ancestry will provide that correction as well as the original. Now, the only bad thing about that is it won't allow you to make a correction to say that somebody is full of baloney and what they have put up there is totally wrong. So you will see wrong corrections as well as correct corrections. One nice thing about the HERITAGEQUEST, though, you can see books still in copyright, and you can download them. It used to be you could download them 50 pages at a time, but now you can only download them a page at a time. And the only reason I like to download multiple pages is I could download the index in a book and then use, print that out and then use that to search the book that I was looking at. So I put some on the handout, there's some resources of where you can find a library. You can also use social media to say, what's the best library? Do they have a genealogy room? That kind of stuff. There is a website from the Library of Congress, Chronicling America, a newspaper site, which provides an index for sources of newspaper holdings, whether it's in print or microfilm. So if you're looking for a certain newspaper, you can find out who has it and how you can look at it or how you can find it. There are a lot of free sites out there, but you will work a little harder if you don't have any subscriptions. Cindy's list, when she first started, was she only had links to free things. Now she has links to paid sites too. But all it is like a great big library card catalog. And she has a cross-referenced index. It's just like the old cards that you would find in the library in the card catalog. I usually start with a location search, but you can start with a topic search. You can explore how things are set up and get the hang of it before you start searching, because it's very structured, and from one area to the next, the structure is exactly the same. She has links to libraries, archives, genealogical and historical societies, as well as sites. This is what it looks like by location or by topic. And then you can see it would be very cumbersome to start with a topic. If, let's say, we were looking for births and baptisms in Mississippi, and it'd be better to start with Mississippi than the topic. If you find a website that looks good to you, that you wish you could afford to subscribe to, set up a free account. Everybody has a free account. A lot of them allow you to search for free because they want to tease you and see, you say, oh, I have to subscribe to this. Look at all the good stuff they have. But set up a free account. And most of them offer a time where they have free access to records. For instance, Ancestry has free marriage records around Valentine's Day, or around Armistice Day, they'll have military records. So they have free viewing times. They will also have times when they have a deal to subscribe, and it might be good enough that you decide to subscribe also. Yes, once they have your email, they'll keep trying to get you to subscribe, but you'll learn the quickest about when there's free times. And sometimes that free window is a couple of days, sometimes it's 10 days, but you'd like to know when it happens. FamilySearch.org, which is the site of the Mormons, the Church of the Latter-day Saints, they have the biggest collection of free records probably available. Their search engine will not allow you to restrict like you might like to, so you'll get more records than you want with first names that aren't what you want. But and there's no way, even though you tell them what name you want to use, they still give you more. But they have the goal of digitizing everything that they have in their collection, and they can digitize faster than they can index. So some of those records have been posted on the catalog section of their website, and those records you can browse, but they're not indexed. So I recommend, if you're going to look in that part of the site, to search by location and then the topic. It's very tedious searching because you have to click on item by item under the topic, but it's worth it for what you're going to be able to see. And some records are not in alphabetical order, but once you get the hang of the order that they're in, it's really not that bad. You don't have to look page by page. Most records are chronological once you zero in on a last name and the first letter of the first name. So it's not that bad. Some of those items are only available at a family history center or a family history library. So if you have one of those close to you, and they're open funny hours, you need to check and see online where they are. I will tell you that whenever I have contacted Family Search online or via phone, that every time I've gotten somebody that knows what he or she is talking about. And if I have a question about a location or something really specific that that person doesn't know, they get back to me with a person who does know. They have the best help of any site I've ever contacted. Find a Grave. This is a huge site. You can see it's all grave records. And there's a way you can link to parents and spouse, and you can upload free pictures. You can sponsor a memorial so that there's no advertising on it. It is owned by Ancestry.com, but they have no plans of making it a for fee site. It's been free from the outset, and I don't think that's going to change. This is an interesting site. It's not being used as much as it was maybe 20 years ago. It's the free arm of Ancestry. So when you get on it, you need to search Roots Web, not Ancestry. And they have linear family trees on them. And this is what a linear family tree looks like on this site. If there's more information, their children, then there's that little person, that little blue head there. And it does tell you if the tree is sourced, so you can see what they have for proof. And you can see up there in the corner that you can contact the person who has the tree. I don't know how many people are newly putting trees on here or how active it is, but it used to be a very active site. This site is another site run totally by volunteers, by location, by county. So some counties are what they call up to for adoption. In other words, nobody's monitoring the site or adding anything. So it's hit or miss what you're going to find, but you're going to search by state and then by county. And they only have links to free sources, and their resources vary. It just depends on the monitor, what he or she is putting up. But they have lots of links there, and you may find things there that you won't find any other place, even on some of those paid sites. Immigration records. The Castle Garden and the Ellis Island sites are completely free. Unfortunately, one of the things they took off their site was your ability to search by sound X or by what it sounds like. So there is actually a better place to search, but you will still have to have a Castle Garden and an Ellis Island free account in order to see the documents. And I listed there what things have been destroyed. So not all the records are there, and they're not, trying to digitize things that they lost. There's a site called stevemorse.org where you can do a one-step search. You can search all of you say you don't know where your ancestor came in. I mean, not everybody came in through Ellis Island or Castle Garden. People came through Boston, they came through Philadelphia, they came through Baltimore, they came on the West Coast, they came on, our southern borders. So you can search all of those at once with this search engine. And he has other kinds of searches on there. And he does link to some things that are for fee. And I believe almost all of those are ancestry sites. This is what it looks like. But I always use this for my searching for immigration records. I love this site. I think I put a link to historical maps too, but the beauty of this site is you can take a place name and you can search by date. And Washington, Pennsylvania, for those of you who know or don't know, it's in the southwest corner of Pennsylvania. And in 1775, it was part of Virginia. So if I had an ancestor who died there, I would want to know where I might find wills and probate. I need to know the jurisdiction. This is very important. Sometimes from census to census, it appears as if your ancestor has moved, when in actuality, it's the lines of county lines or even state lines that have changed, and your ancestor is still in the exact same place. So this can be a very, very nice tool. And you'll notice it also tells you the date that the last change was made. So you can follow a place name by changing the date in there. In case you don't know this, the only vital record, which is the census, that is controlled by law is the census record. And that law says they will not be released for 72 years. And they've arbitrarily now set April the 1st as that date of release, even though initially sometimes the official census date was June 1st. The 50 years and the 105 for death and birth are the generally accepted genealogical standard. That does not mean that states or counties or towns make things public record after that, but that's the generally accepted standard. Many states adhere to those standards. Marriage records are public. Even if somebody says they don't want it published in the newspaper, you can go down to the courthouse and find the records. They're not restricted, as are wills and probate. Once they've been probated, they're not public record until that. The same thing with deeds. So if you want to go to the courthouse, you can see those. Census records were not made for genealogical purposes, but we're using them for that. They started in 1790 and they were every 10 years ever since. And they were used for different purposes. So at one time there was some corruption in that process. In fact, there probably continues to this day. There were some special schedules, and there were states who had their own censuses, and the special schedules and the state censuses are less likely to be available to you for free. Some of them haven't even been digitized, so they're not available, period. But they're more likely to appear on a paid site. Unfortunately, the first censuses from up through 1840 only had the name of a head of household, so it was usually a man, not always. In 1850, they started with all names, which was helpful, but you don't know the relationship, so you can't assume because everybody in the household has the same surname that you have a husband, wife, and children. Starting in 1880, they actually listed the relationship, but remember that the person giving the information may not have known the exact relationship. If you know it's a distant cousin or something. The 1890 census has, for all intents and purposes, been destroyed. It was primarily destroyed by an act of Congress because there was a fire. The records did not burn, but they were sat in water. So there was a lot of water damage, and we didn't know what to do or how to preserve at that time. And in the middle 1930s, somebody in Congress said, well, gee, is it fair that only part of the records have survived? And, you know, they're not all available, so maybe we should just get rid of them all. They didn't quite get rid of them all, but most of them are gone. And then the last census that's been released into the public domain is 1950. And the last census that I filled out, there wasn't very much genealogical information on it. I don't know how helpful it's going to be 100 years from now. Birth, marriage, and death records. In general, most states began keeping those sometime around 1900. The only thing they can truly be accurate for is the event that they're recording. However, for instance, a death record usually asks the names of the parents, where the parents were born, where the person was born, the date of the person's birth. That information is all secondhand information because usually it's survivors that provide the information. And if you see get death certificates for brothers and sisters, you will sometimes see that even though they had the same parents, there may be different even surnames on the parents because, you know, they didn't get it right. So you need to always look at the original document, and if there's a person who is the informant, you need to see who that was to judge that person's credibility, because if it's an administrator in a hospital, that's probably less likely to be accurate than a child or a husband or a wife. Usually the spouse will have better information than the children will. You can pay to get vital records. If they're not in the public domain, you're going to have to show a relationship, and they're not going to be free. If it's possible for you to order it at the county or the town level, do that rather than the state, because you could wait for a long time if you order a record at the state level, and they're usually available. I had a death certificate from New York in 10 days, and I had a friend that waited over a year because she ordered it at the state level and I ordered it at the town level. Death certificates are great, but you have to remember that who the informant is going to be important for you to determine how accurate it is. And they changed what's on the death certificate over the years too, and there's no uniform from one state to the next, so you may or may not get good information. And the cause of death could be very important for you if you're trying to do a health genealogy study. This is a free site that has links to other sources, some for fee and some for not for fee. And that links to anything related to death, so obituaries, wills, and probate. And information about searching the Social Security Death Index is also here. There's a lot of places that you can access the Social Security Death Index for free. But I want to tell you the limits of the Social Security Death Index. First of all, nobody has it beyond February of 2014, even though the law says that they can release the records after 3 years after the death. They have no interest in digitizing the old records. So until they started the process of getting people to have a Social Security number at birth, which didn't happen until the 90s actually, the records are not as complete as we would like to have it. The records before 1980 are pretty spotty. They're better for railroad records than general mill people, but not so great. From 1980 to forward, better, but once you get into the 90s, much better. Remember, though, the death place is not the place of death, even though that's what it says when you're reading the Social Security Death Index. It just means that's the address that Social Security had of record. So if, let's take it's a person that's receiving Social Security benefits, and that person winters in Arizona and spends the summers in Ohio. Well, all their banks are in Ohio, so, and that's where the check is deposited, but they went out to Arizona and died. The place of death on the Social Security record is going to say Ohio. So just remember, that's not the place of death. That's where they received their last benefit. This is a great site. It's totally free. It's designed to help you do your Daughters of the American Revolutionary War application, but it's totally free, and it has links to where you can get records, and the New England states kept records back into the 1600s. You can find births and deaths and marriages. Better up in New England, rather than, it's not all the original 13 colonies that kept good records, but there's links on here in all in one place, and it is kept up to date, and she has tutorials on the site too that are pretty nice. This site is a cooperative effort of major newspapers and funeral homes, and it starts with 2000. If you do the default search, it's 3 days, so make sure you change the record or change the parameters for that to either all their records, or if you know the year, you can restrict it by year. They also, for those of you who have no lives, you can set up email notifications for a surname, and they'll send you an email once a week of when, if anybody with that surname passed away. Obituaries are more commonly coming online. People are not always buried in cemeteries anymore. One of the nice things about the legacy site is even if they reduce the size of the older obituaries, they always include the name of the funeral home. And if funeral homes post up an obituary, they generally do not take it offline, they leave it up. So obviously this is more recent obituaries, but newspapers can provide obituaries, library websites. You can do a Google search for a name plus the word obituary, and you might get lucky. I have found when I've called funeral homes, I've found them to be very helpful. I don't think they, would comb into their dusty boxes of records for you, but recent records, they're pretty helpful. Also, if a cemetery name has changed or cemeteries have been relocated, they can be very helpful with that information because that's their business. For genealogy purposes, if you have a husband and wife and a name, search that plus genealogy. There are people doing good work that are not on any of these traditional sites that you might expect to find a tree. They have their own family tree website, so you might get lucky that way. I've done searches for a place name and cemetery transcriptions when I'm trying to find, if I can find cemetery records. Remember that if you put something in quotes, you're only going to get that exact thing. So for instance, on my name, Sue, if I did a Google search, I'd get Susan, Suzanne, Susanna S, eventually, but if I used quotes, I'd only get Sue, none of the others. Ads will always rise to the top. That doesn't mean that those are the worst records. It just means be aware that some sites have paid to get in the search results, to get their results up at the top. This is a great site. This is one of my favorite sites. And you see, I have underlined the word "the" and it's in red. That's because there's another site called ancestorhunt.com, and it's not nearly as good. But this one has how-tos, everything is free, it has reference guides, it has newspaper links, it has birth, marriage, and death links, it has yearbooks, city directories, whatever you could want related to doing your genealogy. Not as many links as the big sites, but some things that the big sites don't have too. This newspaper site, Chronicling America, is free. It's the Library of Congress project. They have the best darn search engine that you've ever seen, but they're digitizing very slowly. Things that are out of copyright can be there, but they have, if they can get permission for copyrighted material beyond 1924, 1925, then those newspapers can be included. But one of the best things they have on this site is a directory of where to find newspapers. And I think I may have mentioned that before. You can search by location, the name of the newspaper, and it will tell you where they are located and what form they're in, whether they're available on microfilm or hard copies or what. When the Fulton History site first started, he was only doing New York newspapers, but he has expanded over the world. Newspapers.com has tried many times to buy him out, and he's not interested in selling. And it's a guy that is a retired engineer and just loves to do this stuff. The search engine's a little funky on it, but somebody agreed with me that the search engine was funky, and it's an alternate search site that you can use to find results. So I generally use both when I'm looking there, because sometimes with one or the other, I don't get what I'm looking for. But that's a great free newspaper site. Archive.org has a goal of digitizing books and movies and all kinds of things. They have a lot of county and family history books that were popular in the late 1800s, early 1900s. They have census copies. One of the interesting things they have is called the Wayback Machine, where they have digitized or archived websites that are no longer there. So it's possible if you're looking for something, you had a link that's now dead that you thought, geez, I really like that. You may be able to find it on that. You can search that. It's called their Wayback Machine. And you can get a digital library card. This is something new on this site. And you can borrow books electronically. And those would be things that are still in copyright. I think I might have mentioned this before. Get on the mailing list for subscription sites. Most subscription sites have you can search for free, or you can see the indexes for free, and those can be helpful for determining whether you want to subscribe. Or just for a teaser, you can also use my friend the social media to get somebody to search something for you when you know it's there. Genealogy societies always check, and historical societies check their websites. They may have items for purchase, they may have links, and it just depends. That varies from place to place, what they have and how good it is. I mentioned about the social media. Would you believe there's over 16,000 genealogy and historical related Facebook links, and somebody's made a big PDF with all of those? I see all the time on Facebook people asking for to look something up for me on a subscription site. I found this and I want to see it, and people help out. People help out with translations. There are family members out there who may be on social media who are not interested in genealogy, but they may have pictures and stories. So they may share those with you. I mentioned before that we have our computer club has a subscription. Right now, these were the prices for last year. I think Ancestry just went up, but we have an all access subscription. We also have the Publishers Extra, which is a newspaper arm of Ancestry, which it has present day newspapers on it too. And we currently have 25 people, and we pay $20 a month plus, or $20 a year plus our membership to have that. So that's way different from the $500 value that it is. It works because some of our members have a casual interest, and a lot of our big users have a US account with Ancestry, and everybody understands that they have to sign out when they're done for the day doing it, and we have never had a problem for all the years that we've had that. For those of you who like to pinch a penny, this place is has what's going on in the genealogy world. Most of the events are free, and with Zoom, a lot of them are online now, and there's webinars, classes, libraries, all kinds of goodies on this site. Do not go to the site that's conferencekeeper.net, because that's a porn site. I learned that the hard way. And that's it. And
that was great. That was great.
talked as fast as I could.
No, you're doing
That was
fine.
great. Why is the 1960 census still restricted from view?
Because we're not up to 72 years.
What's with 72 years?
That's what that's what Congress decided was appropriate to keep. So by law, the census cannot be released until 72 years after the census day, which is arbitrarily April 1st.
Which means to me that they're hiding something. Don't want you to see it. Everybody will die off before we get to see them.
Actually, you can, if you feel the need, you can actually pay money to see certain censuses. So I've never done that, but and I don't know why you'd have to do that, but
But
there
just,
is
I've had to wait 72 years to see the census from when I was born.
right.
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't need to hear that. Okay. Really?
Well,
Mine came out 10 years ago.
I made it, so mine was, this census was the first one, the 52, or 50 was the first one for me.
Gee, I didn't even need to hear that either. Anyway, Sue, absolutely fantastic presentation. For somebody who is just starting out, you've just given them the roadway of doing and finding everything. And I bet you, all of you guys who are already, immersed in genealogy, got quite a few new places where you can go for free to find things.
And the handout is more robust than the talk.
Yes, so you will get, remember, a copy of the recording, the PDF of her presentation, and she has a handout that she already revised this morning. So, when I get this all together, you guys will all get that. And David, we're going to open it up for open mic after all 3 presentations. And I can't attest to a hospital giving the wrong information about a death, but I do about a birth. My first daughter, we got her birth certificate, and it was Laura Elsie, as in Elsie the cow. Oh, no, it was supposed to be Laura Elise, E-L-I-S-E. So she has 2 birth certificates, one that's wrong. And then we said, excuse me, as you're laying there, this isn't correct. So that has happened on the other end. So that does happen. That was very interesting to find that out, because I never thought about it before. So 1,000 thank yous for this. And then